Hello.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Audible.
Sir, I cannot hear you.
But you are visible and you are audible. What happened? Can you see?
Oh, I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, then fine. I think now it is connected. So should we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So good morning once again, all participants. Now we are having Professor Lalhritpui with us. She is a professor in Department of Economics, former head of the department, and she is having many other engagement in many other committees in the university. And today she is going to talk on economic empowerment of women with reference to domestic workers and gender budgeting, an important topic and often ignored topic also. So she has taken a very right thing to talk about today, this morning. So, Madam, you may start.
Yes, sir. Wait, I don't know, something is wrong with my earphone. I'll just take 1 minute.
Okay, okay.
Hello. Am I
Hello. Yes,
audible?
yes. Audible, audible. You're audible.
Because I'm hearing from my computer, from my
Directly. Okay.
audio. Just hold on. Shwaya.
So you can directly go. Your voice is very clear.
Oh, all right. All
Yeah.
right then.
Without headphone, you can do.
Okay, okay. Hmm. Okay, good morning, everyone. I have prepared number of slides for today's presentation because I have, devoted my time into three sections. The first one will be on the economic empowerment of women. The second one will be on the trajectories of domestic workers. And lastly, the third section will be on gender budgeting. So let me start by presenting my PowerPoint. All these times I have been using, Google
Meet.
Meet.
So this may be a little different.
Yes, it's been a long time we use Zoom. Is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
visible?
Yeah, it is visible. Make it presentation
Oh,
mode.
okay,
Play.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
fine.
Yes,
Fine.
this is economic empowerment of women with reference to domestic workers and gender budgeting. Yes, okay. See, empowerment of women is multidimensional in its approach, and it involves a basic realization and awareness of our potential, power, our capabilities and competencies, and of one's rights and opportunities for the development in all spheres of life. Such dimension of empowerment, it may be categorized as legal, political, economic, and social. And of all these facets of development, our women economic independence or the economic empowerment occupies an area of utmost significance for a lasting, sustainable development of our society. Social upliftment, we often talk about social upliftment of women and political participation. This social upliftment and political participation would be meaningless and almost impossible if their economic independence is not achieved. And when we say a woman is economically empowered, it means when she has both the ability to succeed and advance in life economically and the power to make a decision and act on economic decision. It is not just about making decision, it is the power to act on that economic decision. All right. So economic empowerment is the ability to make and act on the decisions that involve the control over an allocation of financial resources, assets, ownerships, expanding their opportunities for economic productivity and more. Okay. And I will be, in order to understand the differences between development and empowerment, I will be highlighting two measures of women empowerment, or we call it the gender empowerment. Okay. So, as an example, to make my lecture clearer, I'll be using the Mizo women, the data on Mizo women as a backdrop, as a background of this explanation. See, the Gender Development Index is an index designed to measure gender equality. This GDI, together with what is known as the Gender Empowerment Measure, was introduced in 1995 in the Human Development Report of the United Nations Development. We call it the UNDP. So the aim of this measurement, prior to 1995, in all the Human Development Report, we never have a gender dimension. It was only in 1995, that is after that it was that GDI and GEM, the gender dimension of human development, was incorporated in the report. So the aim of these measurements was to add a gender sensitive dimension to the Human Development Index. Okay. So the first one, GDI. What is GDI? Gender Related Development Index. It adjusts the average achievements to reflect the inequalities between men and women in three basic dimensions of human development. It captures the inequalities between men and women in three dimensions. So the dimensions are a long and healthy life. We call it life expectancy. Knowledge, we may put it as literacy, and a decent standard of living. These are the three dimensions where GDI capture the inequalities between men and women. And the indicators for these dimensions are, number one, for a long and healthy life, female life expectancy at birth as compared to male. See, census 2011 data is quite old. So let me rely on the latest MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation data on the life expectancy of Northeast India, except for the state of Assam. See, MOSPI stated that female life expectancy in the Northeast currently is 75.88, whereas male counterparts life expectancy is 72.11. So when we look at the dimension a long and healthy life through its indicator, that is the life expectancy, female life expectancy is more as compared to male. And coming to the second dimension, that is knowledge, the indicator is female adult literacy rate as compared to male. If we look at Mizoram, for example, 89.27 is a literacy rate of female, and for male it is 93.35. Although the female literacy tends to be lower than the male literacy, when comparing to the national level, it is still above the national average. Okay, the female literacy rate in Mizoram is still way above the national rate. So we can call that Mizo female. We can state that Mizo female are quite literate. Okay, knowledge. I am highlighting Mizoram ground reality to understand, to capture the difference between development and empowerment. And the third indicator is a decent standard of living. This is a female. The indicator is female estimate earned income as compared to male. When we look at the labor workforce participation, the female work participation rate in Mizoram is like 40.26%, while it is 59 point, almost 60% for male. The female work participation is much lesser, but when we look at the All India data, that is 25% female work participation rate, we can say that Mizo women are doing much better when it comes to the third indicator, the third dimension. So when we look at the three dimensions of development, okay, a long and healthy life, knowledge, a decent standard of living, we can say that Mizo women are quite developed. But coming to the empowerment measures, that is gender empowerment measures, it focuses on women's opportunity rather than their capabilities. It captures gender inequality again in three areas. See, empowerment focuses on their opportunities. And again, we have three dimensions. The first one is political participation and decision making, economic participation and decision making, power over economic resources and decision making. Let me just, okay. So, what are the indicators for this? So the first indicator is female and male shares of parliamentary seats. And the second indicator is female and male positions as official managers, professionals, and technicians. And when it comes to power over economic resources and decision making, the indicator is female and male estimated earned income. See, it is well known that all over India, especially in the Northeast, that the female participation at the political level is quite low. So indicator number one, we are quite low. And coming to the second indicator also, if we have if we glance over the NGOs, the private companies, or the social or civil societies such as the YMA or the church organization, we hardly have any female in the top. We call it the office bearers. Even if they manage to be among the office bearers, they are usually either the financial secretary or the treasurer, not the president or the chairman. And when it comes to male and female estimated earned income, many of the women work are still unremunerated, undervalued, and not estimated. So the female estimated earned income is much lesser than male. So when we look at these three dimensions with its indicators, we can say that the Mizo women are not empowered. Okay. So what conclusion that can be drawn from these two measurements is that Mizo women are highly developed but not empowered. So just citing Mizo as an example. This is also true for India as a whole. That is the difference that I want you to take home between development and empowered. We are quite developed, we are educated, we have degrees or here and there. But coming to the empowerment side, it is mostly related to making decision and act upon it. In that part, Mizo women or women in general are not empowered. Okay. Then what is the need of the hour for women empowerment? How do we tackle that? There are many reasons, factors that I can cite today, but I'll be just highlighting four major points on the need of the hour for economic empowerment. The first one is recognition of female invisible work. Okay. So there are two types of worker. We call it main workers and the marginal workers. Okay. Main workers are those who have worked for more than 6 months in a year. And marginal workers are those who are working less than 6 months in a year. And work may be defined as participation in any economically productive activities. Such participation may be either physical or mental in nature. It also includes unpaid works on farms, homes, and family enterprises. So when we say work, it includes unpaid work on farms, the work that they're doing at home, and family and or within the family enterprises. But there are serious inaccuracies in the records of women's contribution to economic activity, and estimating the proportion of women who are workers. There are serious, you can see different articles or research work where where even the official statistic provide a gross inaccuracy when it comes to the records of recording women's contribution to economic activity. Then the Equal Remuneration Act. We have the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976, now subsumed in the Court of Wages on Wages 2019. It provides that there shall be no discrimination in an establishment or any unit thereof among employees on the ground of gender. Okay. This Equal Remuneration Act of 1976 is now subsumed in the Court on Wages of 2019. It says that here, there should not be any discrimination among employees on the ground of gender in matter relating to wages by the same employer in respect of the same work or work of similar nature done by any employee. So I want all the participants to take this home, spread it in your locality, in your village, especially among women. See, nowadays what I can what I is experiencing here, we are experiencing here in the rural areas of Mizoram is that in the agricultural land, female are paid lesser than men. And the female, they are not, the women workers, they are not aware that they can also, ask for the same remuneration. They are not aware. So it is in your hands and my hands to spread an awareness that there is an equal remuneration for work, the same work or work of similar nature. All right. So uh, when I'm saying that equal pay for equal work, it means except where the employment of women in such work is prohibited or restricted. For example, carrying boulders, big stones, or digging those kind of activities where there is a restriction because of our physical abilities or any law for the time being enforced. Except for this kind of work, we can have equal pay for equal work. Okay, so this is the need of the hour for economic empowerment of women, to record, to identify, to count, to remunerate women's work in the labor force. And when we look at the data of Mizoram, one of the important aspects of female work participation is the concentration in the primary sector as cultivators and agricultural laborers, Not only that the participation percentage over the census years are high, it has also shown an increasing trend as agricultural laborers. So in Mizoram, women agricultural laborers are rising from 1971 to 2001 censuses. It was only in 2011 census that we saw a slight decline in their participation, but this may be because their participation was not counted and was not enumerated. Okay, so lack of employment opportunities. How come the agricultural women participation as agricultural laborers are increasing? Mainly because of lack of employment opportunity that compels the female workers to concentrate uh, in agriculture and allied activities because they don't have any other opportunities. And that is why we now have what is known as feminization of agriculture. It is happening across India, not only in Mizoram. When we say feminization of agriculture, it means that male being more mobile uh, goes to the migrate to the urban areas in search of better job opportunities, since their mobility is much higher than female. So their agricultural lands are left in the hands of their women family members. So the women family members have no choice but to look after their agricultural fields because their male family members went to the urban areas in search of better job opportunities. This is known as feminization of agriculture. If you look at the various many villages in the rural areas, you will find that their agricultural lands are being taken care of by the women family members. So this phenomena is frequently cited as an evidence that urban unemployment is a spillover of rural unemployment. Okay, feminization of agriculture is one contributing factor of the increasing urban unemployment. Therefore, the need of the hour for the economic empowerment of women is to recognize, counted, and enumerated this invisible work done by women. This will have a direct impact in uplifting women economically. Their economic empowerment is the most powerful route in achieving their potential and advance their rights. So this will further enhance their economic productivity and enable them to participate in decision making at various levels. So it is not only about uh, uh, the 40% of women workers. There could be more. Let the workers be counted. Let their work be visible. Let them be included in the census and other data registration. So this will enhance their economic productivity and enable them to participate in decision making at various levels. And the second factor for the economic empowerment of women is land and property rights. Globally, women own less land and have less land seeker rights over land than men. They make up on average less than 20% of the world's landholders. Women make up less than 20% of the world's landholder, but make up an estimated 43% of the agricultural labor force. When 43% of the women in India are all over the world are agricultural labor force, they make up on average less than 20% as landowners. So land and property rights, especially for women, they are considered an important way of addressing the underlying economic, social, and political inequalities. So, see, in the absence of when women doesn't have secure tenure rights, secure land rights, they may be ejected from their home, upon the death of their husband. And they lack recourse when an abusive partner kick them out, or they could be excluded from decision about the sale or lease of their land, they have no claims to compensation when the land is taken by, say, for the bank or their relatives or the government. And they are more vulnerable to be displaced and exploited when women doesn't have land rights, when they don't have a LSC in their name, when their house is not registered in their name. They are quite vulnerable to be displaced and exploited. So in contrast, when women do have land rights, myriad benefit tends to follow. Stronger women's rights to land and productive assets, they are linked to enhance their status, they're improving their living conditions, better nutrition, better education for their children. It improves the health and educational outcomes of their family, higher earnings, individual savings, and better access to credit, as well as better protection from gender violence. So, owning land rights, having land in their name is one of the important factor for the economic empowerment of women in India. So when we look at yourself, I think many of you must own uh, let's see, we call it land settlement certificate, right? So is that land certificate in your name only, or is it a joint pata? Is the name of your wife included? Is the name of your mother included? See, majority of the land certificate owned by families, they are registered in the name of the family heads only, the husbands. Their wives must also be included by applying for the joint pata, ownership of their lands and other properties. Your wife's names, your mother's name should be included in your LSC. Some government, during the chief ministership of Tarun Gogoi, they did very well when it comes to joining pata. It was one very important scheme launched by the then CM Tarun Gogoi. Because this land ownership will help women to participate in decision making at home front and will enhance their self-confidence to actively participate in decision making at the community level. So the second factor for economic empowerment of women is to spread an awareness not only among the women but among the male, among the participants of this RC refresher course, that it is a high time that you include your wife's name, or just go home and check your the LSC in the name of which is in the name of your father. It is a high time that your mother is also, included in the LSC. So let today's lecture be, an awareness regarding this. Okay, let us all be a torchbearer to spread the awareness among the importance of awareness on the importance of ownership of land and other assets by women. Okay. And the third point on uh, economic empowerment of women, the need of the hour is financial inclusion. It's very important, okay? When we say financial inclusion, it means that individual and businesses that have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs, transaction, payment, saving, credit and insurance, delivered in a responsible and sustainable way. So women low economic status is, I'll be talking about this in the second section as well. See, women low social economic status is a major cause of hindrance in their financial inclusion. At the same time, absence of financial inclusion leads to lower their status. This is a kind of, both side of the same coin. Whether low economic status is a major cause why they are financially excluded, and their absence of financial inclusion again leads to lowering their status. So the government has taken many efforts to spread financial literacy and financial inclusion in India. So the need of the hour is to check whether expected level has been achieved or not. It is not about uh, implementing. It is not about designing a scheme. We should monitor it, and the impact assessment should be there. We should check whether expected level has been achieved or not. Depending upon how far we have achieved, the government should decide further roadmaps consciously. Okay. Then coming to the next point, I am highlighting just in briefly only 4 points for the economic empowerment of women. Self-help groups and microfinance. Many of us might think that why self-help group? We thought that it is only for the rural women to form a self-help group. I don't know, in urban area, urban Aizawl also, when I look around, hardly any self-help groups formed by women, urban dwellers. We keep this, we thought that it is meant for the rural areas, rural women only, but no, it is one of the fastest way, for economic empowerment of women. See, in the context of increased importance being given to innovation, technology, and self-sustenance, especially in this post-COVID era, economically weaker section have faced an acute loss of jobs and income. Even though women have the potential to contribute to household finances, they often do not have the agency to participate. They wanted to contribute, but they don't have the agency to participate in decision related to avenues of income generation, thus pushing their families to the brink of poverty. So to overcome social stigmas around employment and give women the agency to break out of these cycles of subordination, entrepreneurship is an innovative and simple tool that is to overcome the social stigmas around women employment and to provide an agency to break out of that shackles of subordination. Entrepreneurship through self-help group is an innovative and simple tools. You know, Despite effort to create a better environment for women entrepreneurs in India, access to finance is still the single best challenge for them. While the family may have expandable income, its dominant member often refrains from it. The family head, the husband, uh, or the male members of the family, they often refrain from contributing to women's ideas of financial independence. Even if women manage to apply for loans, the collateral against which these are offered, such as property, as I have stated earlier, that they don't have a land in their names, their car are not registered in their names, their agricultural lands are not in their names. So how can they apply for a loan? Because when they are approach a bank for a loan, they have to provide collateral. Just switch off my phone. So, uh, so they don't have access to finance, access to capital. So this father acts as a deterrent to start the enterprise. They have some idea. They can start, they can just start making papads at home, or they can they can start a poultry farm at home, or they can rear pigs, but they don't have finance. And even if the family, even if they have money, the male members often refrain themselves, from contributing to their wives' financial independence. So these kind of problems that women are facing can be solved through what is known as a self-help groups, by joining self-help group. In Mizoram, we have the self-SHGs under this Mizoram State Rural Livelihood Mission. There are different kinds of coordinator under SLRM, like livelihood coordinators, farm coordinators, financial inclusion coordinators. These coordinators usually visits different rural areas. They form, they let women like 10 or 8 or 15 members to form a self-help group. In the initial, as a startup, they gave them 2,500 rupees, 2,500, to open bank account, to purchase register, and for uh, to purchase pen, etc. So after 3 months, they are given a revolving fund of 15,000. So usually, from what I have observed in rural areas of Mizoram, this 15,000 is usually used by the rural women to run poultry farms, piggery, etc. And after 6 months, they were given uh, a loan. They can be given a loan up to 1.5 lakhs through what is known as the Community Investment Fund. Okay. And these SHGs can also avail loans from bank at a very cheap rate of interest. Then the fund availed for these sources were mainly if they cannot, repay the loan they availed, uh, another loan is given to them. to make up to their previous losses. And all the cost benefit analysis are also being done by the financial coordinators. So self-help group is a very important way of, uh, for economic empowerment of women. And the social stigmas coupled with no financial access result in unfulfilled ambitions of women. They have dreams. They wanted to raise some money on their own from home. But the social stigmas that revolve around women employment and no access to capital often result in unfulfilled ambitions of women, thereby limiting their economic opportunities for women. Okay, so in such a scenario, self-help group can act as a bridge between women entrepreneurs who have the will to begin an enterprise but do not have the resources to fulfill their dreams. So SHG can act as a bridge between those who have dreams but doesn't have the resources to fulfill their dreams. So, and SHGs have already made a significant contribution in developing entrepreneurship aptitudes among rural women by enhancing their skills and giving them a chance to engage in various entrepreneurial activities. And the last point on section 1, that is the economic empowerment of women. The need of the hour for economic empowerment is enhancing digital skill. See, in many developing countries, the number of working population is decreasing day by day. If we look at China, if we look at Japan, we see that they are witnessing a huge aging population. But India has a huge advantage because our demographic dividend is heavily tilted towards the youth. It means that we have more numbers of workers, more numbers of people who can work. We call it dependency ratio. It is around 47% in India. Dependency ratio is, let's say, the number of working population with respect to those number of non-working population. Non-working population are to those children below 14 years of age and those above 62 years of age. And the current mean age of India is 28. It means that, the mean age, the average age of India currently is 28. It means that at 28, we are all young and vibrant, right? That India has a large number of population who are able, who can work. This is the positive aspect of increasing population. Many of us, we often cited that, increasing population is a curse, but it is no longer a curse for India at all, because it has leads to an increasing to a more number of working population, those who can work. Okay. However, the participation of women in India's workforce has been inadequate for many decades due to the gender digital divide, because nowadays it's not only about manual or physical work. It is more about digital work, when it comes to job. So the India's workforce participation of women in the Indian workforce has been quite limited due to the gender digital divide. And in order to reap the complete benefit of our demographic dividend, this gap has to be bridged at the earliest. See, the government is making continuous efforts to increase girls' enrollment rates and reduce dropout rates in primary, secondary, and higher education by introducing like midday meal schemes and many others. However, despite these efforts of the government, there remains a significant number of women with high academic degree who are still unemployed. The female urban unemployment rate is quite high. Educated urban women. Why so? They have high degree. Many of them are holding master degrees with PhDs. This essentially points to the fact that literacy alone cannot translate into effective employment in this digital world. When the female members, even if they are master degree holder, MPhil degree holder, or have certain diplomas or degrees here and there, if they are not digitally literate, their employability is reduced. So it is not about having a certificate, a normal academic certificate. So we have to bridge this digital gap, okay? So keeping in mind the huge digital gender divide that women are facing in India, it is essential to focus on digital skill development program as well as digital access, especially for women. If we are able to bridge this gap, then the traditional and digital skill will be combined to provide solution that will enable women to access as a much larger range of opportunities. When we look at the National Family Health Survey, only three women in India, that is 33% of women in India has used the internet so far, as compared to men, which is more than 57%. And rural areas are still facing more challenges, more digital divide, 49 male and 25 female. As you see, India is a home for the largest number of women, that is around 691 million. India is a home for the largest number of women in the world with 691 million. You know what does this shows? It shows that we have 691 opportunities to contribute, participate, and innovate in this ever expanding digital ethos. And this India's digital revolution will accelerate once these gender barriers are addressed. This gender barriers, the digital divide, the gap is to be bridged to accelerate our economic growth. And initiatives are vital to remove the gender-specific barriers women faced in obtaining digital skill training. These digital skills should be integrated with measurable outcomes. It is not just about earning a degree. It is about enhancing their employability with measurable outcome, such as employability, job retention, increased bargaining power, and participation in decision making. See, it all ends up with participation in decision making because that is empowerment. I might hold a PhD degree here and there. I might earn this degree and that degree. I might be quite developed, but when I don't participate in the decision making at different level, I am not empowered. Okay. So in this emerging global restructuring, as manual skills and physical strength decline in importance, we can improve our competitiveness by enhancing and more fully utilizing the cognitive skill of its female labor force. Creating an opportunity for women will be prudent policy, not only on the ground of equity, but also for economic growth. So it is creating an opportunity for women, not only on the ground of equitable, not only on the ground of equity, but also for economic growth. That is the conclusion for part one of my section one of my lecture. Okay. Then coming to the second section, see, the first one is the empowerment of women and what are the critical factors to achieve economic empowerment of women, not only economic empowerment of women as a whole. So coming to the most vulnerable section of women, the domestic workers in India. See, as a working woman, my engagement in these various professional activities would have not been possible with even a modicum of success without the help of my maid, who rendered services at my home. I think this is true for many working women in India as well. Our ability to engage in outside paid employment on equal terms with men is crucially conditioned by this ability, because of the help, because of the help rendered by our domestic workers. I especially as a working mother, I can, you know, I can be here delivering lecture and refresher course. I can prepare this many slides last night because my maid is working, cooking, cleaning, etc. So we cannot ignore the important role played by these domestic workers. Okay. See, the economic activities played by women in every society, it includes not only their engagement in the agriculture farms and their professional roles, right? It also includes their role in performing domestic chores. This particular activity of women has been ignored and is considered as unskilled work till today. They are still considered as unskilled work. till today. It is the work that makes all other work possible. Their services are integrated with many of our family daily routines. My kids can go to school on time. I can reach MZU on time. So their services are integrated with our family daily routines, enabling families to function and thrive daily. So though women do tend to be more conscious and are the ones dominantly doing domestic work, whether paid or unpaid, it is striking how many economically active men from all classes of society take it for granted that such domestic work will be performed by women. How many economically active men from all classes of society, you know, take it for granted that domestic chores are to be done by women alone. But nonetheless, it is certainly likely that the increasing middle class population has contributed to the expansion of the demand for paid domestic work in both full and part-time. India was witnessing an increasing in middle income class, okay, that somehow lead to an increasing demand for these domestic workers. The middle class population in India is projected to make up to 61% of India's population by 2047. This is an analysis done by non-profit think tank known as Price in their work known as India Domestic Worker in 2019. They have stated there in their survey report stated that by 2047, 61% of India's population will be middle income class. So in a survey, it is also estimated there are over 4 million domestic workers in India who still remain a part of the informal and unregulated sector with no policies and regulation to guide and protect them. But the unofficial estimate is 50 million. Okay. Official estimates stated that 4 million. Unofficial estimates are showing 50 million of domestic workers, and more than two-thirds are engaged in the urban areas. And from the case studies and interaction with the domestic servants and employers done by various researchers in India, it was found that women, especially from poor background, they have opted to work as domestic workers. Those domestic workers are those women from poor family background because they chose this work under compelling situation, either due to the death of their husbands or husbands' inactivity to sustain their families. Some other opted for its supplementary income in view of the skyrocketed prices of essential commodities in India these days. Okay, since formal sector job is almost limited, the poor women were compelled to take up domestic work to support their lives, since a significant section of them belong to the lower strata of the society. By engaging themselves as domestic workers in someone else's home, they try to run their family, and whatever income they generated, they have to spend more on foods. Maximum expenditure is on foods, followed by fuel, education of their children, healthcare, etc. And majority of them are part-time domestic workers who work more than two households. You know, sometimes forenoon they work in one home, and in the afternoon they work in another home, and at night in the night shift, some of them are working in three households in a day simultaneously. That's how much they are striving hard. So they work for 7 days in a week and 30 days in a month. Let this be an awareness, and do not just ignore the person helping you out at home. you know they are also, God created us all equally. They are also human being, and they are in a more vulnerable section when it comes to women. I really wish I could talk about the sexual harassment, how vulnerable they are, from their employers, and that there are many cases of sexual abuse of domestic workers, etc. But that is not my purview today. So I'm just highlighting the condition of the domestic workers in India. See, they work for 7 days in a week and 30 days in a month. In majority of the cases, they take leave from work by themselves during, festival time and all. But I don't know how many of us are aware of the fact that, see, Domestic Workers Registration, Social Security and Welfare Act of 2008 provides through its Section 22 that a domestic worker who resides at the employee's home is entitled to yearly leave with pay for a minimum of 15 days per year. Your domestic worker is entitled for a minimum of 15 days per year paid leave. I don't know how many of us are aware of this. So though caste is not barred to entry in the kitchen of the employer, except a few cases, religion is a bar in many cases. From the study across India, caste is not a bar at all. No one really bother about the caste when it comes to employing or hiring domestic workers. But when it comes to religion, there are it is a bar in many cases. So I want you to remember this act, okay? Domestic Workers Registration, Social Security and Welfare Act of 2008 that provides 15 days earned leave for domestic workers. It is for those workers who are residing at the employer's home, okay? So no society can survive without the massive contribution that domestic worker makes to national income. Yet, it remains largely invisible and undervalued, a reflection of the low value India placed on social reproduction. All right. This shows why it is regarded as unskilled, why it is still so largely invisible and undervalued. This is a reflection of the low value that India places on social reproduction. So in spite of a wide range of functions and care services rendered to the employers, they are subject to multiple vulnerabilities like physical abuse, sexual, verbal, trafficking, and depraved working conditions. They can be kicked out anytime. Their mental health is also there. They suffered from insecurities. Since the duration of their job depends on the whims of their employers, yes, this is it. They can be kicked out any day. So quite often they are unable to send their children to school due to financial hardship or tends to discontinue study in the midway. So in many cases, their children end up being the potential domestic workers. Since they're earning quite less, they don't have enough resources to send their kids to school. So their children also became the potential domestic workers. So there was an attempt to create a law in the form of Domestic Worker Welfare and Social Security Bill in 2010, drafted by the National Commission for Women. It aims to bring this vulnerable workforce into the mainstream and help address complaints about the unpaid wages, starvation, barbaric working hours, verbal, physical, sexual abuse, etc. So the proposed law was intended for domestic workers above the age of 18 and specified that no minor shall be engaged in the domestic workers. However, that bill, this is one initiative undertaken in India, but it was enacted into law. Okay, it was undertaken by the NCW. And again, in order to provide a legislative framework for domestic workers, the Lok Sabha presented Domestic Worker Welfare Bill of 2016, but this was also not passed. There were efforts, but enacting into law, I don't know why it is very difficult for the government. And we have the National Domestic Workers Movement, a workers' rights organization with offices in different states and over 2 million members fighting for the recognition of domestic workers and improve their working condition. National Domestic Workers Movement. Domestic workers and the organization that represent them have made modest but significant progress towards securing their rights. Despite unfavorable circumstances, they are raising their voices. And because of these voices for legislation, domestic workers are now covered by this act. I will not be reading it out. We have this act. So they are now included, especially, see, the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act did not include our home. If a domestic worker is being abused sexually by the employer, that their home, their kitchen is not considered under the definition of work prior to 2013. But after the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act of 2013, we can now, the domestic workers are now legally included. Their workplace, our home, is also included in the definition of workplace now. So some states even have announced domestic workers minimum salaries. You know, I don't know how many joined from other states. I would like to have your feedback on this, whether there is a minimum salaries established or no, fixed by your state government. In Mizoram, there's a proposal, but it is still a proposal. 10,000 per month. No, 11,000 per month for those who reside in the employer's home. There's a proposal, but it is still it remains a proposal till today, yet to be passed. And many states government has also established welfare boards for such domestic workers. See, as far as financial literacy, the route for economic empowerment is concerned, these domestic workers are still facing challenges. Majority of the mode of payment is cash. It is important for them to equip themselves with financial skills to provide them better working conditions, or else their financial inclusion will only be restricted to documentation. Therefore, including them financially is essential from an economic point of view to improve their socio-economic condition. When it comes to financial, how I think many of you are also rendering the services of domestic workers. How do you pay them? Is it in a cash form? So it is your duty to teach them how to use online payment system. For example, a popular one like Paytm, GPay, etc. You can, why not open a bank account for them? But if you just open bank account for them, it will only be restricted to documentation. Let them do some transaction. Let them do some transaction. Let them be involved. So it is your duty, our duty, to to let our domestic workers include financially. You introduce them from now on. From this month, you kindly pay them through GPay or any other forms, and introduce them. So that will lead to financial inclusion. Okay. See, but their low economic status is a major cause of hindrance in their financial inclusion. They are excluded because of their low economic status. But absence of financial inclusions, however, also leads to again lowering their status. So this is like two faces of the same coin, as I have stated earlier. Financially, do you include your domestic servant financially, or do you just pay them in cash? So from this point forward, I request you all to pay them, to open bank accounts for your domestic workers, and not only that, introduce them to this online digital platform. Okay. So what can be identified from all these facts are the significant increase in the number of domestic workers in India. As I have stated, unofficial estimate is around 50 million, and two-thirds of them are residing in the urban areas. Why is it that their domestic workers population is increasing? This growing demand from professionals and middle-class households is only part of the reason for the massive expansion in domestic work as a source of employment in India over the past decades. See, I have in the slides before, I have stated that due to the increasing middle income population, that the demand for domestic worker is increasing. Okay, this is only part of the reason. A more significant cause, a more significant reason comes from the supply side. That is the inability of the economic growth process, India's economic growth process, to generate adequate productive employment opportunities for the growing number of people in the labor force, especially women. Yes, it is not only that the middle income population is increasing and everybody wants to work, they have to hire domestic workers. But a more significant cause is the inability of economic growth to create an opportunities for these 691 million women to be included them as to be counted them in the labor force. Okay, so a significant cause. The main cause is the supply side, and the second factor why there is an increasing domestic worker population in India is the testimony of the growing inequality in income distribution across the country, inequality of income, which enables some families to pay for such to be done for them, while other families are effectively forced through necessity to perform this paid work. Imagine that there are families who can hire 3, 4 maids at one time. At the same time, there are families who are looking for a job as domestic worker. This is mainly because of the inequality of income distribution in India. At the same time, rising inequality meant an increase in self-employment, with more and more people desperate to supplement income by engaging themselves as domestic workers, which leads to lower wages for them. When there are more number in economics, a simple theory is that when the supply is more, it tends to lowers the price. So just like that, when there are more number of domestic workers, it will leads to a lower wage for them. See, as I have stated, due to the increasing middle income class population, domestic workers, uh, you know, population is increasing. But the most significant cause is that India's high rate of economic growth have not translated into an adequate increase in employment in the formal sector. When we look at now, currently only 25% is female labor for work participation rate. That is as per 2011 census. But when we look at the periodical labor force survey, it is estimated that 32 of all the labor workforce, 32.8 is female work participation rate, and whereas participation of male is 67.2. So we have 32.8 population, the untapped potential in our economy. It is high time to tap these domestic workers or the women potential, 691 million women. Okay. So in recent times, academic contributions are forthcoming to explore the difficulties faced by the domestic workers and the way to improve their living condition. The ILO Domestic Convention of number 189 guarantees the fundamental rights of domestic workers to decent and secure work, which covers decent work condition for domestic workers. Okay, the various voices, people are raising their voices, international, national organizations, etc., and the need of the hour is that India must ratify these fundamental rights. The labor law in India are still ill-equipped to meet the specific problem that arise in this field of work. Efforts are needed for better integration of these domestic workers sector into the economy, and ensuring that this set of employees will obtain social justice within the new legal framework. All right. So the need of the hour is we should have a law to include these women. Let their, let these domestic workers be well remunerated, counted. Let it be considered as a skill. So all this untapped potential, 32.8% of the female of the entire working age group, these are the untapped potential. And India should reap the benefit by tapping this untapped potential. And let us look, I have done a survey on the domestic workers in Mizoram. So I'm just sharing with you the ground realities of urban Aizawl, okay? A little work done by me this year. See, the monthly wages in Aizawl, 82.4% of the employers are paying 6,000 to 8,000 per month, okay? And 2.9 are paying rupees 9,000 to 11. And 17.3 of the employers are paying rupees 3,000. Muni 3,000 to 5,000. Paying 9, and on a daily basis, 94.7. There are those domestic workers who does not reside in their in their employer's home. They are paying 94.7 of the employers are paying rupees 250 to 500 on a daily basis. And when it comes to hourly basis, 80% of the employers are paying rupees 150 to 200, and 20% are paying rupees 50 to 350. I'll just get water. Okay, see. So maximum of the monthly pay per month is 6,000 to 8,000. Daily basis is 250 to 500. Hourly basis is 50 to 350. And none of the respondents have ever employed children below 14 years of age as domestic workers, but I doubted that because we hardly ask domestic workers for the birth certificate, right? And many of them who are, especially now in Mizoram, what we're experiencing is, the refugees from Myanmar and Manipur side, domestic workers supply is increasing, but we better check their birth certificate before we employ them. They should not be below 14 years of age. Okay, so 50% of the respondents, that is the employers, permit their domestic worker to attend skill development training, such as tailoring, hairdressing, etc., while working in their homes, and the other half and are not letting their workers undergo such training. For example, I have a maid who resides at my home, but every night at 7:30, I let her attend a tailoring class for her to enhance her skill. Okay, so 50% of the employers are permitting their domestic workers to attend, some kind of some kind of skill development trainings, but the other 50 doesn't permit them. So 94.3 of the urban domestic worker employers in ISO are purchasing toothpaste, soaps, etc. for their helpers. That is, they provide toothpaste, soap, etc. 88.6 provides medicines. 47.5 offer free sanitary pads. It's quite surprising. I find this a bit surprising, no, quite surprising, because how come only 45.7% of the urban domestic worker employers are providing their employees, the domestic workers, free sanitary pads? It has to be free, right? So if you haven't started, why not start from today? Okay, in your family, why not provide free sanitary pads? In my office also, in the Department of Economics, Mizoram University, I keep it for free for the girl students. I said, until my retirement, I'm going to keep this. So I put one small box outside my office. There I put monthly free sanitary pads. So you can do the same. And 34.3% provides undergarments. And 28.6 bought makeups, like moisturizer, sunscreen, and all. And while 2.9% of the ISOL urban domestic worker employers at no time provide all these items for the domestic workers, they let them manage on their own from their wages. And 89.2 agreed and support to have laws to protect the rights of domestic workers, legislate minimum wages for them, and adopt social security scheme for the welfare. Well, 10.8 disagreed. Out of the 100% of the respondents, almost 90% said yes, let them have social security scheme, let them have law, for their welfare, let there be a social security board, welfare board for the state. But almost 11% said. This is also quite surprising, because I have taken only women, the eldest, women member of the family, for as respondents. So almost 11% found no reasons for domestic workers to have law to mitigate their predicaments. It's quite surprising. Yeah. Okay. Then coming to the third section. The third section of my lecture today, that is gender budgeting. This is also a route. The sections are all interlinked. Okay, it is one of the road to for economic empowerment. For the empowerment of women, I have stated what is empowerment, what is the need of the hour. Then we highlighted the ground reality of the most vulnerable women, I call it, the domestic workers, how their condition can be improved. And the third section will be on gender budgeting. Okay. See, over the past years, governments, non-governments, national, international, researcher and grassroots activists worldwide have increasingly recognized the crucial role of integrating a gender perspective into budget for achieving the government and international commitment on gender equality and women empowerment. And more recently, the potential role of this gender budgeting in contributing to achieve the Millennium Development Goal 5 has been acknowledged. Okay. Uh, so gender budget. Let us talk about what exactly is gender budget. So gender budget initiatives are strategies for assessing the budgetary processes and policies so that revenues and expenditure reflect the differences and inequalities between men and women in income, assets, decision-making power, service, and social responsibilities. It is a strategies, a way to determine the entire budgetary process, the revenue, the amount of money allocated for this and that scheme, and to capture the inequalities between men and women. It is a tool that promotes the goal of gender equality by integrating a gender perspective into the budget for what? To enhance and support women as the beneficiaries. Let the schemes under the government be, analyzed from a gender lens. So that is what the gender budget is all about. Okay. See, women and girls face how much time do I have? Let me check. Oh, only 20 minutes more. Okay. Women and girls have various forms of vulnerability through their life. I won't read this. So gender budgeting is a tool that can be addressed to use the vulnerabilities faced by women. Let us first differentiate between what is gender and sex. Gender, as we know, it reflects the culturally and socially constructed role, responsibilities, and expectation of women and men, boys and girls, because these are socially constructed, they can change over time and differ from one place to another. Whereas sex is the biological difference between male and female. It refers to the physical attributes that we are born with. I need not elaborate more on this, okay? Because we know gender roles are changing over time. We were born and brought up with the different preconceptions that men don't cry, that women talk more. But those gender roles can change. Nowadays, cooking is not only assigned to women, assigned to the female members. If we look at the restaurants and hotels everywhere, the chef, the master chef, the cooks, they are men. So the gender role can change due to the change in the society and change over time. But sex doesn't change. Okay. So this is the initiative undertaken by India. I have only 20 minutes, so let me be a bit faster. So India initiative, during the 9th five-year plan, 30% of the budget was allocated for women, okay? And the national policy for the empowerment of women was adopted by GDI, by Government of India in 2001. And India started having a gender budget, or what is known as gender responsive budget, in the union budget from 2005 to 2006, okay? So what exactly is gender budget? It is not a separate budget for men and women. It is not about dividing budget into 50-50, okay? Rather, it is budget that are planned, approved, executed, monitored, and audited in a gender-sensitive way. So gender budget means looking at schemes through gender lens, track the funds allocated, assesses their impact, and suggests corrective action to address their disparity. I will skip some slides, okay? So, but gender mainstreaming should mean a much more qualitative analysis over and beyond the quantitative presentation. Profiling alone usually provides a quantitative mainstreaming of the status of men and women in a given sector. For example, participant in RCMMTTC today, if I just jot down your number, it means just profiling, a quantitative approach. Why not have a sex disaggregated data, So a qualitative approach is an essential step for the gender analysis, that is collecting and analyzing sex disaggregated data information in order to understand gender differences and how these differences may have impact on the policies effectiveness. The ultimate goal of mainstreaming is to achieve gender equality. Then we have the gender budget statement. Okay. In Union budget, we have a separate gender budget, and it is a statement that promotes gender mainstreaming. It helps in identifying the opportunities and scope for further intervention by the government, as it highlights the actual allocation for the past year, revised figures for the present year, and the budget estimate for the upcoming year, thus identifying the gap in implementation. So this is what the gender budget look like. Okay. Part A is 100% for women, 100% scheme dedicated for women. And part B is 31 to 99%. That is above 30 to below 100. 31 to 99% scheme exclusively for women and girl child. And let me just share a sample that I have prepared. See, this is part A of the gender budget will look like this. I have been chosen Women and Child Development Department. Under that, for example, we have one-stop center, which is exclusively for women. And Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, you are aware, Safe Girl Child, Educate Your Girl Child. So these are the kind of schemes that will be in part A. Then the third point is Nari Adalat, that is village grievance redressal mechanism known as Nari Adalat. It is being implemented in a phase-wise. First, now it is as a pilot. It is started. No, it was. I think started in the state of Assam and Jammu and Kashmir only. Okay, Nari Adalat Village Council Court. So these kind of schemes, 100% schemes for women is in Part A. Okay, and Part B is, as I have said, above 30 to 10, 100, above 30% to 99%. So this is I have chosen the school education department because when we look at PM Poshan, it is midday meal scheme. This is both 30 to 100% women specific program because midday meal scheme is in the part B because it is for boys and girls. It is not only for the girls student. Okay, so PM Poshan, Samaga, Siksha, Abhi, I will not. These are just dummy variables that I have. There is no time to explain now because I have only around 14 minutes left. So part A is 100% for women. See, one-stop center, Beti Bachao Nari, are all 100% women. Part B is 31% to 99% for women, where you can have PM Poshan, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, etc. Okay, so let us briefly analyze the gender budgeting in India. Since its inception, since we started having gender budget in 2005 to 2006, it remains almost constant from around 3 to 5% of the union budget. Okay. Now, approximately gender budget for 2024 to 2025, this current fiscal year, is 6.8% of the total budget expenditure. Okay. This is a significant increase from the previous year because previous year it was only 5%. So why has part A, why has this why it has increased from 5% to 6.8? The main reason is introduction of part C. Since its inception, we always have part A and part B, but from this year budget, we started having part C was introduced. Okay, which include schemes with less than 30% for women. Second, the rise in Part A allocation, which cover schemes with 100% allocation for women. Previously, Part A constituted 15 to 17% of the gender budget statement allocation. Okay, but this has surged nearly to 14% since 2023 to 2024. This change is largely due to the PMAY, that is the housing scheme, for both for the rural and urban areas, being reclassified from Part B to Part A. Okay, we have stated that in this year's budget, the allocation for gender budget increases, but this increase doesn't mean that they are putting more money. It is just about reclassification of this PMAY from Part B to Part A. And it's still hover around 5 to 6%. So now this is the new budget statement we have from this year. We have now Part C, okay? All these years, it's only Part A and B. Now we have Part C, that is schemes having less than 30% for women and girl child, okay? So if we look at the gender Part A in the total gender budget, it peaked to 46% for in 2021 to 22. And in the last year, in this current fiscal year, Part A still counts for 39%, while Part B is 61% of India's gender budget. As you can see, the last one, see, Part A, 100% women, for women, account only 39% of the gender budget scheme. But sorry, gender budget. While as Part B, the scheme for both men and women, the scheme for both girls and boys, occupies a much larger portion of the fund allotted, that is 61% of India's gender budget. Okay. Though it is a gender budget, only 39% is dedicated exclusively for women under Part A. And Part B, where we can share with men and boys and girls, is still 61% of India's gender budget. So this implies that wholly women-specific schemes do not form the majority of the gender budget till today. All right. When we say gender budget, it is not only wholly, owned specific women-specific problem. As we can see, only 39% of the gender budget is specifically for women, whereas 61% is for Part B. So what are the major constraints? The major constraint, I will not be, how much time? Okay, 10 more minutes here. Uh, Lack of gender awareness. Okay, here the most important part is lack of gender data banks, this sex disaggregated data. How many states in India are having, in-depth study on this? It is when we look at various statistical handbook also, there are only few sex disaggregated data that has been, disaggregated in male and female. So it is the duty of the state government of various states to, create a gender data bank. Okay. So what are the checklists to meet this gender budget? Allocation of funds. The first one is whether allocation of funds are adequate to meet the needs of the target groups. Monitoring what was delivered and to whom. Whether the policy implemented change for promoting greater gender equality. And identifying the need for strengthening delivery system, infrastructure, and capacity building. So the first essential step for every state to promote gender equality, for empowerment of women, to design policy is sex disaggregated data. That affects women and girls exclusively or primarily. Gender data provides meaningful insight into differences in the well-being across women and men, and girls and boys, as well as it will create an actionable information for policy to address disparity. Okay, so I skipped some slides since time is a limiting factor. So as a concluding remark, for the economic empowerment of women, the need of the hour is to focus on the policy gaps, policy for employment generation for the untapped potential, that is women, engaged in domestic chores, and legislation of labor laws to mitigate their predicaments. So the broad conclusion that gender responsive budgeting, though it began as a promising fiscal innovation in India, has not translated effectively into policies that have an impact on women. India should deepen the gender budgeting process by reprioritizing policies through a gender lens to effectively translate them for further gender development in India and to achieve sustainable development goals. Goal 5, that is gender equality. Thank you all.
Yes, hello. Yeah. Uh, Professor Lalhritpui, can you see questions in Q&A box?
Yeah,
Yeah,
wait.
you can take up this, or otherwise I may read.
Yes, I have demonstrated with numerical example uh, when I receive. Oh, yes, I think I have already answered the first one because one participant is requesting numerical example. I have cited that. Yes, how to overcome discrimination in wage payment. First thing is unorganized. You have to spread an awareness. Spreading an awareness that under the Code on Wages 2019, work of similar nature are to be paid, you know, at par with men. So you should spread an awareness among your peers, among your family, that we have equal pay for equal remuneration acts. And the third point, hmm, yes, very Priyanta Ghosh, very good question. Can you hear me? Am I
You are
audible?
audible. You are audible. Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. So Priyanta goes question. Yeah, yes, you are very right. That average Indian women. It can also be said for the average Indian women because I just to differentiate, just for you all to capture clearly about the differences between development and empowerment. I have cited Mizo women as example, but it can be also said for the same average Indian women. Okay. But yes, Indian women are neither developed. This neither developed will be quite a big question depending upon the parameter. Yes, a very good question. The last one, quite. No, I don't have data on percentage of domestic worker in overall female workforce. I will look into this, okay? Because all the estimate I have is the from the periodic labor force survey and census. I don't want to rely on anymore because we are supposed to have census 2020 21, but due to the I don't know whether I'm supposed to blame the Modi government or not, but this year also it will not be possible to have census again because when we look at the budget allocation for census, hardly anything was given. So again, for official statistic, I think we still have to rely on census 2011. But when it comes to labor force participation, kindly refer to the periodic labor force survey, please. Hmm. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation. Very nice presentation and responding to each of the questions. So thank you for sparing your time for us. Thank you, ma'am. So, dear participants, now you can take a break for some half an hour. We'll reassemble at 1:30. And along with us, we'll be having Professor J.U. Ahmed from Department of Management